Chairman James, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity of being here. I think I can save you a bit of time now by just saying two things. So I'm going to start with my conclusion, and that is what James has said about what is the requirements for our producers to be able to export. Traceability, biosecurity, confidence in the systems that you have on your farm. And then I also want to say what Petra said yesterday morning in the first presentation that we heard. We have a government, we have a broken system to deliver the services that we require to go forward and provide these exports. How do we fix that structure? So let me give you some background. First of all, don't be too concerned about the content and the aspects that I will go over quickly. You will have the presentation and all of the information will be available to you. But just to confirm that, yes, our red meat is of top class quality. We don't have to try to fix that. We have to try to fix the system that prevent us from delivering this world-class product to the international market. I just want to remind that, yes, I am the General Manager of the Red Meat Abattoir Association. We represent abattoirs, but within the new structure, within the RMIS, we do provide these market access functions on behalf of the entire value chain. I'm not going to bore you with the information as to the agreements that we have in place, the memberships that we have in terms of World Trade Organizations, the development community, and also WOA. You probably have heard a lot about WOA in the last year, the World Organization for Animal Health. I think what we are missing in terms of WOA is that WOA provide international guidelines, and in this case for trade and animal health. They provide guidelines. They do not provide the rules by which we will have to trade. And I think this is where the delays are coming from in terms of our export market. But yes, there are general export rules. There's basic animal health requirements that we have to fulfill, and I think you will all agree that the current FMD outbreak and the way that is being handled is providing great challenges for us. Yes, there's also public health requirements that have to be followed. Those systems at our export-approved abattoirs are all in place. There is no doubt that we have world-class standards as far as our facilities is concerned, and it's probably the least of our concerns. Having said that, the one thing that is a prerequisite for exports at our facilities, and amidst an FMD outbreak, is that all carcasses now have to be matured. They have to be above 2 degrees for 24 hours, and after that, they will then have to be deboned in the case of beef. That deboned beef being matured is a safe commodity, recognized by the World Organization of Animal Health. So in fact, whether that animal had then foot and mouth disease or a vaccine for foot and mouth disease 3 months ago, 30 days before that, has no consequences on the safety of that product for our international market. And then there is some basic export requirements like residue controls that is also in place. So again, you will see this. Yes, we have some trade agreements. We have agreements in place. Foot and Mouth have changed that. We had to renegotiate. We have to provide some risk mitigation measures. This is true. But at the pace that government is doing it and have been doing it, it just is too slow for us as an industry to regain these markets. And this is the principle of the problem. So what I want to do, I want to take you through how we get to open a market And you see this in summary here. Yes, a country will ask us for a questionnaire. They want to see what is the structures of our veterinary services. They will come and do some verification audits of our establishments. This is how Saudi, for instance, opened the market in 2023. We as an industry were responsible for those audits to be conducted and for the Saudi market to be opened. And then the veterinary health certificates have to be negotiated. Now, yes, the National Veterinary Services have some responsibilities in this regard. I can tell you that the department appointed industry, for instance, to prepare some of the questionnaires. We started, for instance, with the Indonesia questionnaire a year ago, provide regular updates to the department. The request for that questionnaire was presented to the department in 2017. This is how long it takes for us to respond to a country wishing to trade with us. So these are the processes that have to be followed. Having said that, what is our international status? Do we have a recognition of an FM3 fee zone? No, we've lost this in 2019. Do we adopt some principles of equivalence in terms of the WOA guidelines? Well, in part, we can still do that. Many of our importing countries have agreed that with bilateral agreements, we will be able to trade with them. The difference was that when the UAE, for instance, requested our department in November of 2025 to negotiate a new certificate, we did send a letter that was beginning of November. We did send a letter in December to ask them for some extension on this deadline because we wanted to consult within the department on the requirements. We asked for an extension for 3 weeks, which was granted, but we never adhered to those requirements. And they simply sent us a certificate on the 8th of January of this year, which according to the department was a very difficult certificate to adhere to. Industry intervened and requested a meeting with the department, requested some changes to that certificate, insisted that there be some request for interpretation and clarifications on that certificate. It was presented to the UAE, and they, within that month, presented us with a new certificate, presented us with these clarifications to state that they will accept our previously infected FMD cattle and sheep, vaccinated. They have no problem with that product. It's not in our certificate, by the way, so if you read the certificate, it's not there. But this is what was negotiated. So what is the problem then, if we had the certificate and we could continue our exports from FMD quarantine facilities, big feedlots, both sheep and cattle? What was the issue? The problem was that we struggled for 5 months to adopt our internal measures to get these certificates signed. Because remember, and we will get to this just now, is that our previous FMD guidelines said that if you are under quarantine, you will lose your export status, and we will get to that. But the message here is, this is the difference. It requires, export markets require proactive communication and then to adopt our internal measures. Yes, we have some challenges in our market broadly. our foot and mouth disease status I've referred to. Please watch the second one here, because we are also as an MTT working on this, because our BSE, our mad cow disease status, is currently of an undetermined status. We don't have an accredited laboratory that can do these tests. We've made proposals to the department to say that we will take these samples as industry and we will send it to Pirbright for testing, because we do need some evidence to our trading partners. The ineffective enforcement of the feed ban on the feeding of ruminant material to ruminants, this is one of the requirements for all of our trading partners, that we can provide evidence that this ban is in place. The use of growth stimulants, lack of enforcement of a national traceability system. There's some additional substances having to be tested for some of our trading partners. And yeah, delays in the certification of consignments is a big issue in the export market. We simply, the export markets and the consignments going out of the country is unfortunately not an 8 to 5 job, but government as an 8 to 5 job. I'm just going to show you some information, and it's in the slide, so about the current export markets and trade. But if you look at the graphs here, and this is only for beef, yes, our focus is certainly on the Middle East. But I also want to say that the reason that we, for instance, lost the China market, it's not because of the requirements and not because FMD, but it was because of a lack of proactive communication on our side to provide them the guarantees and the evidence that we can still trade with a safe product in terms of FMD. All right, so Middle East is certainly a very important market and will be in the future, and a lot of our focus is on the Middle East, but also the Asian countries is also will become in the next couple of years a very important market for us. The legislation that is important to for the producers, and I'm not going to spend too much time on the list, it's also in the document. But yes, we have, for instance, a declaration of health that is standard for even internal systems, where you have to provide evidence of what is happening on your farm in terms of disease mortality, health of animals. I'm not sure if you're aware of the fact that as a producer, you're not allowed to present an animal that you know that is diseased. In other words, where there's any abnormality. Well, that abnormality or disease have to be declared as part of your declaration of health. And now you will see that this declaration of health and the requirements that the producer have for exports has just been extended in terms of what is that requirement. So certainly identification, starting with the branding and then going to the rest of the traceability, first owner and then animal identification. I'm not going to spend time on this. So what I'm going to do now is to take you through the very contentious VPN 59. This is a procedural notice, registration and maintenance of approved establishments for exports that was prepared. And this system was prepared to provide for guarantees for countries where we don't meet the specific requirements of this country. Nothing wrong with this, nothing wrong with additional measures. But let's just go through them. So it was obviously designed first for China and then also for Saudi to provide the requirements of what this country will require of us. So What is the requirements? Some infrastructure requirements that you have to have, physical separation from surrounding premises, access control, and yes, by the way, Chair, I don't know if you remember with your outbreak the first time around in the Eastern Cape, and I don't know if you remember that even for a very small facility, we had to put around a fence around that facility to prevent, to make sure that that abattoir, that we at least have an abattoir to start our FMD slaughter 2 years ago. This is how it all started. Yes, biosecurity, your farm of origin, there was a requirement that the farm of origin, it have to be from South Africa, it must be a South African product, and there must be evidence that this livestock was born on the premises. Once again, if you don't have a full traceability system, very difficult to comply with. Feed requirements, I've talked about the ruminant byproducts, to have an up-to-date feed register, veterinary medicines and other substances, no prohibited substances on the property, only registered medicines in use, electronic records of all veterinary medicines and other substances to be available and to be readily available, a locked store for all these medicines, identification and traceability, each animal individually identified, traceable back to the farm of origin, electronic records when livestock go to slaughter. Yes, basic animal welfare practices must be met, and I just want to share with you that for export purposes, there's a lot of intention on environmental impact and animal welfare. From our importing countries, it is a requirement that we meet some international standards related to, for instance, animal welfare when we then trade with the animals and prepare products. Then the movement of animals, very strict movement with permits and under veterinary control, is basic requirements in VPN 59. And so what happened since and after these very bureaucratic systems was put in place? Let's just have a look at what happened. Jordan in January of 2026, then after intervention with the department and after we requested changes to the certificate, accepted that they will accept our product, they will accept it from previously infected animals. The requirement in all of our certificates that is currently, that has been negotiated and that will in future now be in place in the near future, will say that this animal must be under supervision, veterinary supervision for at least 30 days. So whatever your system is for import, there will have to be a privately authorized veterinarian to be appointed that will at least oversee the processes at your facility. That is a minimum requirement. And remember, this is in the absence that state veterinarians cannot fulfill that functions. They don't have the capacity to do that. So this is where the assistance will come in. The UAE. The UAE concluded in January the certificate. Once again, they will accept the previously infected, vaccinated animals and healthy at the time of slaughter. The difference here is that they require official supervision, and again, for that reason, that veterinarian that is responsible for your farm, feedlot, will have to be appointed by the department to fulfill this responsibility. Jordan does not require this. Now the problem here was that we received the certificate in January, but But our previous FMD contingency plan, that stage said, if you're under quarantine, you have lost your export status. You cannot export. So we asked the department in the beginning of February, well, please reinstate the ZA status of these facilities, these feedlots and abattoirs, since they can actually now export this product. We eventually also, with regard to the sheep exports, we received a veterinary health certificate from the UAE to state that states that they will accept an area of freedom of a farm. So that certificate was changed. We asked the department to review the VPN 59 and addendum that was presented to veterinary services to the provinces, because this is not the requirements that the countries have asked for. They said, prove to us that the animals are clinically free of FMD for a 30-day period, vaccinated or not vaccinated. There was the deadline for the submissions for this registration of these farms and feedlots was extended after also Section 23 by the RPO on this matter. Yet, as to date, we have not received the alternative measures for exports to the UAE. In other words, the simplified measures compared to what I showed you earlier, to allow these veterinarians to do these audits, to recommend these facilities to the national department in order for them to, by the end of this month, to be registered so that they can continue trade. Kuwait, yes, we are awaiting feedback on the foot and mouth status of the product. We've not received any feedback. Mozambique will also accept our product previously infected with FMD, FMD or vaccinations. Lebanon have also accepted the draft certificate that industry has proposed to the department earlier in the year. They have now accepted. Please watch out. You're going to ask me, well, what do we want to do in Lebanon? Why do we want to export to Lebanon? In the Middle East, very many of these countries is the route to the Middle East. And this is probably also what will happen here. So the revised control measures relating to foot and mouth disease were published in July after it was prepared by the MTT. There's huge changes in terms of these requirements. You all know about the requirements that we had for the condemnation of fifth quarters at abattoirs. Now it basically states, and I just want to go one step back. Now we don't have to slaughter an FMD designated abattoir after 42 days. Most of us can live with that. We don't have to destroy any products after that. The abattoir will not lose its export status when it then slaughter vaccinated livestock. Major changes to for us as an industry to enable us to trade normally, but also to be able to export from these facilities. Yes, the potential loss for the fact that we could not, despite the veterinary health certificate being in place, that we could not export, is the market that we have lost over the time with the delays. In fact, the previous minister in June presented a press release that you would have seen, where he indicated how well it's going with the exports after he received some feedback from his own department. We as an industry have objected to that press release by stating that at that stage, not 1 kilogram of FMD vaccinated product has left this country. But this was the press release that was issued by the department at that time. Yes, we've lost. Then also, I just want to share with you a letter that then went out on the 3rd of August, on Monday, to provincial directors. Remember, this government gazette was already published in the beginning of July. So a month later, after many of confusion in the last month, the department then issued the letter to say, no, you will no longer lose your status. You can resume normal trade 42 days after day 0. And yes, you may only export to countries that have agreed to these measures. So, what is the requirements just for the farms? And I'm concluding with this slide. What have we asked the department to consider in terms of their rules for our extensive farms and our feedlots? Don't force the private veterinarian to travel 300 kilometers to an extensive farm every 2 weeks, but use risk mitigation to do that. Accept batch identification on these extensive farms and not necessarily individual identification. You have an electronic system with all of the information pertaining to disease management on the farm. And ensuring that the feed does not contain ruminant byproducts. We have the Act, we have state veterinarians that is providing the service and have to oversee implementation of the Act. We don't have to provide for additional measures necessarily. There's no access control needed on an extensive farm, but yes, adhere to some basic biosecurity arrangements. Disposal of carcasses, what will we do with it? No, we don't have incinerators, we will denature it on the farm and we will treat it with lime. No, we will not be able to evaluate the animals on a daily basis, but we will have weekly monitoring of our animals on the farm, compared to what is the requirements in VPN 59 for daily evaluation. As an example, no, we don't need for a veterinarian to inspect these animals 3 days before moving to a feedlot, for instance. We will do that inspection at the abattoir or at the feedlot. And your procedures and records should be available. Yes, you will be responsible for some systems to be in place on your farm that provide proof of disease management systems and traceability on your farm. And no, you don't have to have a truck wash facility on your farm, because the truck that's going to collect livestock from you, deliver it, will come with a certificate from either the agent or the abattoir that it has been cleaned properly before it enters your facility. Those are the examples of what we've asked as exemptions to those very bureaucratic systems that is basically not required by our importing countries currently. Yes, this is the look that we sometimes get from farmers and feedlot owners when we say, yes, you do have some responsibilities to provide for systems at your farm, but not quite what is currently written in the guidelines. Chair, thank you for the time. I hope it shed some light on your requirements and also the way forward for exports from South Africa. Thank you.